Good morning. How we all doing today? Sorry about that sound in that video where I was sanding. Somebody recommended I get a mic, like for my lapel. Maybe, I should for you. I understand that. It's just right now I'm still a working man, and even though I'm putting out all these videos, I don't know, man. Still don't see myself as like some sort of professional YouTuber at this point yet. This morning I got to clear off this drill press, and I got to make room because I got to drill all the holes in the doors for the European self-closing bloom hinges. But I put this on this morning. This is one of my favorite coats. It's kind of a vintagey thing. It's that herringbone twill Dickies. And I reached in here and I pulled out this vintage. I should have bought the whole box. The side protectors are busted off, but these are these old safety goggles, And I've always been drawn to this old stuff, even when I was a kid. So this video today is going to be about, I've discussed this before. I've got another video out there, like reincarnation and your ties to like older times, because a lot of us have these strong ties to that stuff. And even the way I dress, it's always been a little bit different from everybody else, other than when I was a kid and being kind of like caught up in the trends in the 80s. We were all doing that same sort of thing, But you'll notice that about me, and even with the boots I bought, right? These rough out Broadwingers, they really remind me a lot of what like the soldiers wore in World War II. And I can see that silhouette a lot in my mind. I'm really drawn to that time period. And for some reason, World War II in Europe, which bothers me a little bit because I was a Marine and I read a lot about the South Pacific. And if I could pick where I'd be, of course, I would have rather have been a badass friggin' Marine or a Marine Raider or something in that period. But yeah, there's something about World War II in Europe. And when I watch movies from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, I get emotional a lot of the time. I had an experience in Paris. I was there for the Millennium with a friend of mine, Michelle, who spoke French. She's a French Canadian, and that was a really good trip. I was in Paris for like 2 weeks, and then I got on the Orient Express, and I went over through Germany and Budapest and all these places. I ended up in Slovakia visiting a friend there, and wild stories, really good time. But I was in Paris, and we went to the Moulin Rouge and watched the show. And at the point of because they do this historical thing with the girls, and when it got to the World War II, I had so much emotion well up inside of me that I just bawled like a baby. I just started crying for I don't know why, some bizarre like deja vu moment of being there. And whenever I was in Europe, everywhere I went, and I went there like 5 times back in like the late 90s. I was, long story, but I had this real strong thing about it. And so now, as I get older, I find myself like dressing even more like that time period. For instance, the baggy workwear and rolled up pants high, and it's more comfortable, feels more natural, and it just makes sense. I mean, people ask me about the cap all the time, right? Well, this one here actually has even the reproduction tag. You guys are always asking me about the cap, so hope that's in screen and in focus there. But it's a cap, herringbone twill, OD, SEMS Inc. PO number. It's dated June 20th, 1943, U.S. Army spec. Dated November 27th, 43, stock number, Philadelphia depot. I mean, it's and again, it's herringbone twill, same fabric. Last night I joined a group on Facebook off my phone, vintage workwear. I did a video talking about reincarnation and the whole transgender thing, and it was a few probably 3 years ago. I got shadow banned at that point. There was I was starting to gain some numbers with Instagram. I was putting videos there, and I did a video talking about, because I was getting a little bit more political at that point in time. 3-4 years ago, we all know what was going on. It was crazy, man. There was just so much nonsense coming out on the boob tube. I couldn't take it, so I started doing these little sit down, talking at you videos. They're on my YouTube. They got no views. And it started because I did a video where I was talking about that Greta chick who was a child, and people are listening to her. And my point was, why are we listening to children? They don't know anything. They know what they're told. They know what they're told. We're listening to them because they can be programmed. They can have all this emotion that was programmed into them, and then that gets to you. If you hear the point of view coming from a child who's emotional because they don't know anything, then you get emotional. And once you're emotional, they know logic goes out the window. So that's what they count on. It's how they program your mind, And I did a video on that, and within a day it had, for me, being a dude, not a woman showing a bunch of cleavage on YouTube, because that's what gets the numbers. I did this video and it had like 480 views or something in a day. But I had forgotten to hashtag her. So like 2 days later, I hashtagged her in that video and had more views. And then the next morning I got up and had 0 views. So that's how I know you get shadow banned. At that point in time in particular, we all know how this went down. The laptop stuff, the Russian dossier stuff, all this stuff was fake. And if you talked about it or tried to say that, you got shut down. Social media, everything. It was weird. It's opening up now because the truth is out and we know. So, but I did another video on YouTube about the reincarnation thing and transgenderism, which I'll put a link to in this. My point there, it's not what I wanted to talk about, but my point there was this idea of, you may not believe in it. You don't have to believe in it. All right, but just hear me out on this. I think there's at least 4 universities in the country where you can actually study reincarnation, and it's the University of Virginia is where this all started. I forget the guy's name, but in the 60s or 70s, he made a movie called Beyond and Back, and I know this not because I researched it. I mean, I have a lot, but that movie was in the theaters, and my mom took me to see that when I was a little kid. And one of the main parts I remember about that film was this kid who was born one place, but when he could start speaking, he could speak this other language in the Middle East somewhere, some country. And he was saying how, hey, you're not my mother, you're not my father, I've got a wife, I got kids. And so it's a documentary type of film. They take the kid there, they take him to the village, he's walking down the street, and that's my wife. He knows her name. He knows all their kids' names. He knows that guy owes me $50. All this crazy stuff, and that stuck with me. But it wasn't something I thought that much about. Now, I had an uncle who, he's the guy who used to punch me in the face all the time. Taught me how to box when I was a little kid, and he was an athlete and all that. And he had gone to somebody, I guess they do that past lives regression thing. He had a lot of physical issues. But he did beat himself up as an athlete his whole life. He was a fireman. He fell through some floors. Like a floor went out, and he fell through a bunch of floors in a building in, I think it was Patterson. He was a Patterson firefighter back in the 70s. I remember visiting him in the hospital with his attraction. But he said he had gone to some woman who regressed him, and this is my uncle, who he was definitely full of himself too. But I remember him I don't know if he was telling me this. I think I just overheard him and my mom talking about it. And it was her brother. And he was saying how he had been a gladiator in a previous life. And so he got a lot of these injuries. But he was surmising that he was kind of suffering in a way because of the way he made people suffer in the ring. But that's not so much of a... That's like a retribution thing. That's like, oh, if you did bad in that life, you're going to pay for it now. I'm not sure I subscribe to that, But I think we could definitely have been here before. And I suggest you look into it, because there's one of my favorite, more modern stories, which is probably 20 years old already now. And you can look this up, and it's great. Basically what they say is, up until about the age of 4 or 5, you could still have strong memories and ties to a previous life. Not everybody has this. But when kids start talking, sometimes they'll start saying things talking about things that they did or lived through, and they might even be having nightmares and describing this, and they could not have experienced it yet. They're too young. And especially if they're talking about specific time periods that you can get to the bottom of because of what they're telling you. So there was this kid who was having these dreams on his back, and he was kicking and screaming. And when he was able to talk, he started doing weird things and talking to his parents. The gist of it is, he eventually said that he had been a fighter pilot during the Battle of Iwo Jima, and he got shot down, and he died. But he didn't die from getting shot down. He died because the plane hit the water. He couldn't get his canopy open, and he drowned in the plane. And so the kid knew the name of the ship. He knew his name. He knew his friends' names. He's telling his parents this. And so the father looks it up and finds the ship, finds the guy, finds the friends. It's all, everything this little child, a kid, is telling him is all real. It all really happened. How would he know that? And it turned out the sister of the guy who died, who he was in a previous life, was still alive. The parents contact her. They get them together, and she pulls out the books. He knows everybody in the family pictures, what their names were, what they did, everything. And she accepted this child as her long-lost brother who died during the Battle of Iwo Jima as a fighter pilot. So they actually brought the kid there when he was like 11 or 14, somewhere in that range, I think. They brought him there to throw a wreath in the water to let him move on with this current existence. It's like he's like a young adult now, and there's interviews with him now, and it's amazing stuff. I find that stuff fascinating, and I wonder about that with a lot of it. There's tons of stories like this. This is just a couple examples. I suggest if this is something you're interested in, do your research. If you're going to look at that, by the way, that is far more entertaining and interesting than me and listening to me, or a lot of the other things that you're watching or listening to. It's really, really fascinating. But I have this emotional tie to that time period, and I think it's interesting to me. And yeah. Anyhow, wrist check here. I made myself a new watch cuff style band again in bison hide for this Panerai copy. I'm so pro. I think I hurt my shoulder. Anyhow, I think that's about it. Just it's I guess this is a part of the reason to explain why I wear the things I wear and the way I dress. It's just me. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm not trying to be currently stylish. Clearly, I have no idea what's going on with trends. I never liked that. Yesterday I went to the watch joint. My buddy Mike, Mr. Majestic, gave me at least 10 pounds of buckles, watch buckles. And there was a lady in there, older lady. If I had to guess, she could have been 70, late 60s maybe. But I still found her attractive, and because of style. She had this bob haircut. She had these really cool thick frames like these kind of, but they were round. And she had like a tan top buttoned down with black slacks, and she had a really cool mid-century Bauhaus kind of vibe going on. I noticed her as soon as I walked in, and I just was so impressed with that. One of my favorite things with women in particular, in case you're curious, I like a woman who has her own sense of style that's not trendy. Kind of piece together your own vibe. You know what you like, you know what looks good on you, and you're confident. Confidence is the number one thing for me. Somebody who's confident enough, and this is just everybody in general, men and women, friends of mine. People who are confident enough to go out into the world and be themselves, wear what they want to wear, do what they do, no apologies, right? So that's cool to me. But there's a difference. Like I recently met this woman who's kind of living her life like a lesbian, but she likes to get it once in a while. It's a crazy thing. I find her attractive. But on one hand, I'm attracted to her because she has this great confidence. Very confident. But she's overly cocky, and her inflated ego is totally unattractive. So when she's being cool and she's playing you and she wants the attention and everything, and she's trying to get a rise, she gaslights you. I watch her do this with some women too. There's this thing where she gets you interested. She does all the things to get you interested, and then as soon as you start warming up to her basically advances, then she shuts you down like, oh, I'm not interested. So it's this yin and yang, give and take. She's a fucking psycho, man. So that's not good. But confidence in general is confidence and a sense of your own style and not following the trends, to me, are obviously some fitness, doing the best with what you got, all that sort of thing, being a positive minded person, all that. But I just have this funny attraction to the first thing you're going to do. It's visual. First thing you see, it's always visual, right? So if somebody's walking around and they got that sense of style, I'm going to notice that. And if the opportunity is right, circumstances where I can approach somebody and just start speaking with them, then I get to know them a little bit, and if they've got the confidence behind it, that's cool. But then, usually it doesn't take very long. You get to figure out what they do and what they think about a couple things, and then you decide pretty quick whether or not you want to keep that person in your life or get to know them more. Anyhow, this is off the rails. I just wanted to I guess it's really about explaining my mindset over my appearance. For you, because I get these comments. I'm always asked about what I'm wearing and the hat thing and all. I get private messages all the time. Once in a while I slip. I know I put my address out there from time to time in a video. I don't do that on purpose. It's just a mistake. I'm not noticing it. I don't care that much about it. I live in an apartment. It's upstairs. I'm not worried about somebody breaking in and stealing anything because it's very secure. You'd have to walk past so many other people with all my shit, and there's always people there, so I'm not worried about that. And as far as somebody just showing up sometime, I'm not too concerned about that either, because I know how to defend myself if you're a crazy person. And the phone number's out there. And I will say, my buddy made a joke about it yesterday too. We were talking about this subject, and he's like, it makes me laugh when people cover up their license plates. Do you have an opaque thing across your license plate wherever you go? Because anybody who sees your license plate, they know what your license plate is. Most people can't look up a license plate and get your address. I don't know what the hell you're worried about. And by the way, if I know your name and about where you're at, I can find out your address, your phone number, and everything on the computer. Type your own name into the computer sometime. Do a Google search on yourself. It's crazy. According to Google, I'm worth like $5 or $6 million, and it's ridiculous. And I'm not. Maybe if I sold my bike collection, I don't know, or all my collections. I'm not. I don't have anywhere near that. I don't have any. Not even. I have nothing. What you see is what you get, man. I got what's in my pockets. Actually, which is nothing. There's nothing in my pockets right now. So I'm not that worried about my privacy. And people find my phone number. From time to time, one of you will call me out of the blue. If I've got the time, I'll take the time to talk to you. It's usually questions about... The last guy who called me was some old retired guy, veteran. I forget where he was. I think he was in Nevada. And he wanted to talk to me about Bowie knives for some reason. He found a jungle Bowie that didn't have its handle, and he had a bunch of questions. And then it turned out it was actually the USMC... I have one here, the USMC Bolo from World War II, which is the U.S. Medical Corps. And he was a real nice guy, and he caught me in a moment when I could talk to him. And after the conversation was over, like 20 minutes later, he called me again. And I was like, dude, just, I don't have this kind of time. Being nice, but that's a little crazy. So just keep in mind, I can't, perfect strangers, it's kind of hard. I do appreciate you wanting to ask me something. Email's better, and I try to answer the emails. I just don't always have the time for it, and there's a likelihood that you could get lost in the shuffle because I get so much mail just with bills and work stuff and other things I'm interested in, and you know how it is. The YouTube's grown, and I'm happy about that. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Eventually, at some point, it could get to the point where I don't have that sort of time to read all those comments and like them all and all that sort of thing. Like, on one hand, you kind of wish for that. On the other hand, then you feel you're almost like a little bit guilty that you can't give that interaction with everybody. So those of you who are here now and have been here for a while, Thank you. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. Seems to be working. Look at this. This is a doorstop here. You want to talk about vintage? I went into a warehouse where they made aircraft during World War II in the 90s. They were going to shoot. They were renting this warehouse space that had shut down in like the early 80s or late 70s, and everything was left as it sat. So there were desks and coffee cups and papers. Like people were just given a pink slip or something, never came back to work. And it was a warehouse out here in the valley. Believe it or not, it's like a time capsule. And there was a film with Harrison Ford and some chick, I can't remember her name. I think it turned out she was into women at something, so like there was a funny thing because there was a romantic kind of movie. It was some plane movie where they crash or something. You guys remember? It was from the 90s. So they wanted this aircraft hangar to build some sets in or something like that. And so my friend and I went in there. We were tasked with cleaning it out and making room before the movie crew got in there. And we were able to take whatever we wanted. And this was one of those things. So this is an electric gun, for doing something, and it's pretty cool. I never took it apart. I keep thinking I should take this thing apart and if I rewire it, I'll bet you this thing will work. But again, this is a really cool, super old thing. You guys could tell me, is this that old? This looks to me like it's from that time period. It's friggin' heavy too. This is a great way to work out. I'm just rambling now. That's it. There's a lot there to digest. You guys have a great... I can't help myself. If I see something that's old and cool, that's still useful, I'd rather use this little tripod here than go out and buy some new thing. And I found this in a thrift store in Arizona. Look at that fluted aluminum handle. To me, it's just cool. There was a time when every little part of every little thing was designed aesthetically to be pleasing to the eye. And ergonomic as far as the case of this. And by the way, if women were using this, holy cow, man! Like this thing's got some serious weight to it. This has got to be like 8 pounds, 7-8 pounds. I don't think it's 10 pounds, but that's serious weight, man. Holding this thing all day, you'd have to be jacked, man. A couple weeks of that, you're friggin' jacked. All right, now I'm done. Oh yeah, one other thing here. There is a screw threaded insert here, so there was probably a handle on this as well. And it's got a stop button that locks the trigger. If it's got that, then it had to be just a drill. It's threaded. That little rod in there is threaded. So anyhow, let me let you go. I got to stop blathering and get to work. It's like I don't talk to anybody for days on end sometimes when I'm not going to people's houses. So I suppose that's part of what I'm doing with this YouTube thing. I just need to talk a little bit. A little bit. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.